viewers, welcome to another episode of What's Your Career video series brought to you by Link Your Purpose. My name is Kiona Smith, an 11th grade high school student and mentee with Link Your Purpose, and the guest host for today's episode. With us today, we have Dontae Matthews, journalist at the Jamaica Information Service. Hello, Dontae. Thank you for accepting the invitation to sit with me today. Tell us.
Thanks for having thanks for having me, Kiona. It's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely. So tell us, Dontae, what's your career and what does it entail?
All right, so I'm a writer, producer, presenter, aka broadcast journalist at the Jamaica Information Service. And because JIS is the government's PR entity, what we do is promote the policies and programs of the ministries, departments, and agencies of government using radio as the medium.
Oh, okay. All right. That's nice. So, second question, what qualities does one need to be suited for this career?
All right, so you need to be a people person because you have to interact with people, you have to interview people, you have to ask a lot of questions in order to get the story. You need to be you need to be a researcher because you have to dig for the story. It's not gonna come to you. Sometimes it does, but most of the time you have to go and fetch the story.
Okay.
So those are two. There are a lot more, but I'm just gonna give you two for now.
Okay. I can see where you're a people's person. So,
Yes.
what steps do I need to take to become a journalist?
All right, so first you need to finish high school, do your subjects, do a lot of writing subjects because, as a journalist, you have to write, even if you're working on radio, you have to write. So as my title says, writer, producer, presenter, before I go in studio, I have to write, produce the script, and then go in fundamental courses such as English language, English literature, history, social studies, those courses that propels you to write and research, those courses. Then you want to go to a university or, well, let me not say university, but a training school that, that will equip you for the field of journalism. So is it a media school? You can do an associate if you want, a bachelor's degree if you want, and then you can choose now what area of journalism do you want to go in. Okay. There are different areas.
That happened to be one of my questions here today. Which subjects are you to do in high school? So tell us more about that in that capacity where, doing high school, going to high school and developing the skills and everything.
Okay. All right. So in high school, there are some mandatory courses such as English language and literature, which I mentioned earlier. So those courses, you have to do. Well, I know English language. Some schools have literature as a mandatory course. And you want to ensure you do other courses such as social studies, history. And why I say history, history has a lot to do with research and, going back to, and in the field of journalism, you have to go back sometimes to like past events or if you're writing a story about a person, you have to research their life. So history kind of give you that background. Yeah. And then you want to also do information technology because as a journalist, you will be using computer. So you need to know how to use the computer applications, how to use Microsoft Word. And you also, I know some schools have, for example, digital media. I know some high schools have implemented that course, especially in their sixth form program. Some schools have law. That's a good course to do too, because as journalists, you have to cover on, let's say, politics or laws, the different acts, especially if you're working in Jamaica. Well, if you're working in other countries and you have to report on the different laws, it's good to have a little background and how to cite the laws and stuff like that.
Definitely. Thank you. Yeah. How many years of study does this career require?
All right, so for a bachelor's, because I did a bachelor's degree in communication studies, it's 4 years or approximately 4 years. So based on how you do your courses and how you manage your time and go through the semesters or modules, it can be before the 4 years or a little after the 4 years. So it depends on you and how well you do in school. So I know for University of the West Indies it's 3 years. At Northern Caribbean University it's 4 years. If you're doing an associate degree, it's 2 years. And, if you're going to another training school, it varies based on where you go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can you give an estimate of what the tuition can be like based on your experience?
All right. Based on my experience, I would say for a 4-year degree,
Yeah.
it's about 1.8 to 2 mil.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put it within that bracket for 4 years. If it's
Oh,
a 3-year degree, maybe 1 million to 1.5, thereabout. And then it depends on where you go.
lovely. Saying that, there are some students who are not able to afford this. Are there any scholarships out there that can help
There
bridge?
are Yes, there are a lot of scholarships, especially when you apply to these universities. Sometimes when you get in, or even before you get in, there are several scholarships available, grants that you can apply for. Sometimes you have past students who sometimes give back to these universities,
Yes.
or for example, Northern Caribbean University is a Seventh-day Adventist university. So sometimes if you're, let's say you're an Adventist, there are opportunities for you to get grants from like your conference. You can apply to them. There are different programs that assist students going to university. There are some community development funds across the island that assist in education. You can apply to maybe corporate entities. For example, I know NCB usually gives
Yes.
scholarships, and some other banks and other financial institutions. So there are many options out there just for you to research them. So as the aspiring journalist, you need to ensure that you go on a research, because as a journalist, you have to research. So you need to research about these scholarships and find out what are the requirements, how to apply, what you need, all of those information, and then you get at it.
Very true. Very true.
Yes.
Um, can you share with us any benefits associated with journalism?
Well, one of the benefits for me is the fact that I get to meet, a lot of people in high positions. So, for example, not just working in government, but even those who work in mainstream. And when I say mainstream, I mean like TVJ or CBM, IFM, those stations. So they report on anything. They're not for or against, or they report on anything.
Yes.
So you get to meet people in power. So you may interview the prime minister. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, or should I say Tuesday, I interviewed the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. So I was able to go to a press conference with him and the Ambassador of Japan. And,
Oh,
I had another event some time ago where the Colombian ambassador was, having a press conference. You get to meet the different ministers. I have interviewed high commissioners, consuls generals, uh, so many people. So you get to meet people in power, and you also get to tell other person's story.
oh, so you get
So,
to talk about certain
yes,
things.
you get the benefit of telling their story. So somebody might have an interesting story, and you get to be the one that you know
Story.
convey that information in a creative way.
Yeah,
Is it through a feature? Is it through, well, different types of features, or is it a story that newsworthy? You can put it out and give the facts. So yeah, you get to meet a lot of people and you get to tell the story, and you get to hone your skills as well, because you get to, after leaving journal, if you plan to leave journalism after working in the field, you carry those skills into other professions as well.
that's very true.
Yeah.
Can you tell us any popular stories you've done?
Popular stories. All right. So remember, I work for government, so
Yeah,
my stories are government related.
related.
Uh, I remember doing a story on when the Jamaica's Consul General in New York started a one laptop or tablet for a child initiative,
Mm-hmm.
and the shipment came to Jamaica, and I was able to interview her and write a feature from it, and also get a news story from it.
Oh,
When the Social Development Commission was having a community market and business fair, I went to the fair. I interviewed the Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport. Did a feature. When the Ministry of Foreign Affairs moved to their new headquarters at 2 Port Royal Street, I wrote the story. When Jamaica's vaccination program got recognized in the UK, I was able to write that story because they weren't accepting it at first. So the
yes.
foreign minister had she had conversations with the UK government, and then they started accepting our vaccination program. So a lot of stories, because I cover Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology. So anything regarding, like, for example, when the first electric vehicle charging station was launched at Draxall in Clinton, I wrote that story and then a feature.
Wow.
And yeah, so I cover local government, rural development, the Houses of Parliament. So anything that happens in Parliament, I cover.
Yeah, you're the one.
Uh, Now they have a new ministry, which is Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. So I was able to write a first news story from the minister, Marlene Malafort. So a lot of good stories, a lot.
Love that. You seem so passionate about it. You know,
I am,
hearing you talk about it.
I am, yes.
Okay, moving on to our next question. What do you love most about your career? But the thing is, I've been listening to you speak and you just seem to love it all.
I think my favorite part about my job is, I think it's the interviewing process. I love the writing and everything, but it's the interviewing process because what that process does is it enlightens me. So I may be planning to write a feature on a certain topic and I don't know much about the topic, but you have to form a question. So you might do a little research and you formulate your questions. And in that interview process, you learn so much that when you're writing and even after you're finished writing and you present it on radio or what, you are so enlightened that you can go home and tell your family members that, let me give you an example. The other day I wrote something about the domestic workers and the pension scheme. And it's the first time I'm writing something about that because I don't cover Ministry of Labor and Social Security. But when I did that feature, I was able to tell persons who I know are domestic workers that, hey, you need to ensure that you pay this and you give your contribution to the NIS and stuff like that. So yeah, I like the interviewing process because I get to learn things and I can then educate others. Yeah.
All goes about it. Okay. What has been the most challenging part about your career path?
All right. Challenging. All right. Sometimes when you are planning to do a story and you contact the source, because in writing you need your sources.
Yes.
Sometimes they answer you, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they say yes, I will. Then when you try to get back to them, they ignore the calls or they're busy out of the island. Sometimes that delays your story and you have to be finding an alternative because in media you have to find alternatives. You can't just sit back. So sometimes I want to do this story and I want to interview somebody and they're not picking up the phone. They can't get through to them. So I find that to be a challenge sometimes.
Okay. So I actually do history. So when you said that the subjects included for becoming a
Yes.
journalist was history, I was very excited. So I wanted to become a lawyer. But now history is definitely not history. Journalism is definitely on the list.
Yes. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that.
On a scale of from 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how much would you recommend this career?
All right. On a scale
From 1 to 10.
1 to 10, with 10 being the highest,
Yes, sir.
I would say a 8.5.
Oh, why?
Because every profession has its positives and every profession has its ups ups and downs. So I would say 8.5, or let me push it to 9. Let me push it to 9 because let me push it to 9.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to be safe, let me push it to 9. Yes. Let me push it to 9.
All right. Are there any books I can read to gain knowledge about this career path?
There are several. Well, I know that there are several books. Well, when you go to school, like university and so on, you're doing the actual journalism courses. Based on what you're doing, there are different textbooks. For example, I know fundamentals of writing. So I think there's a textbook for fundamentals of writing, like the different writing practices, news writing textbooks, investigative journalism. And a good option also is reading different newspapers, reading international news, because as a journalist, you have to be aware of what's happening, not just in your country, but what's happening outside, in the Caribbean, in America, in Europe, so try and read wide as possible because you may never know what you'll have to write on it, and you'll need to have a little background on that topic.
Okay. What
Yeah.
made you want to become a journalist?
Ah, all right. Interesting enough, I studied communication studies, so I did journalism courses, but I actually emphasized in public relations. So
Oh,
the beauty about Northern Caribbean University, the Department of Communication Studies, is that you learn everything. So no matter what you're emphasizing in, you learn. You learn the whole discipline. So you learn journalism, you learn radio, you learn television, advertising, public relations. So you're well-rounded and equipped to work in any field. So if if I want to go into public relations, I am equipped to go in it because I emphasize in that. If I can produce for television as well, I can produce for radio because I work in radio. I can write for print because I've done that while in radio.
yes.
I remember writing 2 articles since I remember one in late December. That's the latest. I wrote about the scientific research council's smoked meat facility, and I did it for radio. And I also submitted a print copy, which made it on the website of the Jamaica Information Service, and also the Gleaner picked up that story. So
Okay.
you get to hone your skills in many ways. So it's not that I specifically said I wanted to be a journalist. I just wanted to study communication as a whole. And I always knew I had something for journalism, especially radio, because people have always been telling me that, I have a voice for radio and I sound good on the radio and all of that. So I said, all right, so that coupled with the writing skills and the production skills, all of those merged now, and it just made me love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What advice do you have for students watching right now who would like to pursue a similar career path?
Don't give up on your studies. So continue studying, continue reading, doing your research. So yes, you might want to be a journalist, but don't just say, "Oh, I want to be a journalist because you want to be on TV or because you want to be on radio." There's much more to it.
Done.
Ensure that it's something that you love. Do you like producing? Do you like, are you a people person? Think about the characteristics that it takes to, be in that field. Do you get along well with people? Do you like being in public because you have to be at public events, covering events? Do you like these things? Think about the characteristics. Think about the requirements, and do you have those, or do you need to work on getting those requirements intact
Experiments.
in order to pursue that career path?
Okay. So, students watching, listen to Dante's advice and don't
Yes.
give up. And that is the end of another exciting episode. Thank you, Dante, for sitting with us.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope those watching learned something and are going to get on that journey.
Uh, it has indeed been a pleasure. Special thanks to our viewers for sticking with us, and we hope you find this episode to be informative and satisfying. In case you have more questions, remember you can visit our website at www.linkyourpurpose.com and talk with a professional in your area. Please join us again next time for another episode of What's Your Career video series with Link Your Purpose. Thank you.